Heavenly Father, great are you, Lord. Great is your name, and worthy are you to be praised, Lord Jesus. We are so happy and grateful that we could be here today, Lord, that we could learn of you, learn how to serve you, and tell others about you. Thank you, Jesus. Bless the word tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, let's see. Things coming up. Saturday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we start the Fall Festival, and it will go until 8 o'clock. If someone wants to stay later, they certainly may. But that's this Saturday starting at 3 o'clock. And we've had a sign-up sheet here. We'll be having hamburgers and hot dogs. And so the church will provide that, but if you'd like to provide something to go along with that, as far as fixings for the burgers or the hot dogs, we need you to sign up for that. If you're not here tonight where you can, if you would please send me a text so we can make plans about that. Also, we need some other cakes for the cakewalk. So we have a couple signed up, but we need more. And so if you can help with that, please do. And so if you're here tonight and haven't signed up, that sign-up sheet is here. And let's see. Yes, Sean Powell's grandfather passed away this morning. I think he went to the hospital yesterday and passed away today. So we need to remember that family in prayer as well. Let's see, other things coming up. We are still collecting things for Romania. Daniela's not in here. Winter things. Any size, right? Children, adults, whatever. Yeah, so this is for the gypsies in Romania. So we'd like to get several boxes of things to ship there. They are in pretty desperate situations in some places there. So. Yes, so I think we actually take those down to Atlanta to ship them out, and so we'd like to have several boxes at one time. So those are some of the things coming up. Keep that in mind. Fifth Sunday, this Sunday, we'll be observing the Lord's Supper. So we've got that happening. So it's good to have Tennille Downey from Wales with us, and so would you like to give an update and answer questions? Okay. I'll take whatever's left.
Maybe you'll take whatever's left. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me in the back? I don't know how close this has to be. So my name is Tennille Downey. I'm here as a way of saying thank you for your many years of support. Not only prayerfully and financially, but all your cards and candies and things that you've sent the kids over the years. Our kids are now fully grown. Our daughter is 24 and a half, and she's getting married in June. Be marrying a nice Christian fella from England. She is a pediatric dietitian, so she's been out of our house now for the last 5 years. Our oldest son is 21. He still lives at home. He has autism, so he'll be with us for a little while longer. But he has a little job at Burger King, and he's quite happy to stay at home for now. And then we have our youngest turned 19 last week. So we are now parents of 3 grown children. Our youngest son is doing an electrical apprenticeship, so he'll be an electrician when he finishes. So that's the children. My husband is at home in the UK. I'm here just on my own on this trip to be here with Mom while Dad is in Chile. He's gone down to visit one of the churches that they started in Chile, so that's why I'm here to keep her company while he's away. At the minute, we're working on our sponsorship license so that we can sponsor missionaries into the UK. So there's some complicated processes in that. So it's been a bit of a difficult, stressful time these last couple of months while we've waded through tons and tons of legal paperwork that we don't understand half of. And I'm not sure the government understands half of it either. I think that's part of the plan. If they can cut you off at the knees before you get started, that keeps you out of their hair. But today's update is they've gotten our application and they've read it. They have not rejected it, but they want more paperwork. So my husband will be back tomorrow looking into what it is that they've asked for and trying to fill all of those boxes that they've requested. So hopefully in the very near future, we'll be able to say that we can from then be able to sponsor new missionaries into the country. It's not just us that's been affected by this. Every other missionary into the UK has pretty much had the same thing, where they've had their sponsors pulled right out from under them. Very few of the missionaries will have been sponsored by someone that they live in the near vicinity of and work with. And that's the new rule. You can't be sponsored by someone who lives 200 miles away from you. They have to live right by you. So that's made it a little bit complicated, because most of our UK missionaries were sponsored by one church that was started by an American missionary. So that church took on the responsibility of making sure that they knew where every missionary was, and it wasn't as strict as it is now. Now we have to know when they take a day off, when they go to the doctor. We have to know all of that now, and we have to have a paper trail to prove it. So we have to have a lot of papers and more papers and more papers. So, it will affect pretty much all the missionaries going forward from today, or from the last 2 months, really.
So how did you escape that?
Well, we escaped that because we've been on the field for 27 years, 26 years.
So what's your status?
So 26 years ago when we went into the country, all we needed was a sponsor. And then at the time, all it was somebody who says, "Oh, I know you, I'll sign for you." But then after you got here, you could do whatever you wanted. So we came into the country under that sponsor. We are still friends with that sponsor, but we did not have to answer to them. But now, from going forward, every missionary will have to answer to their sponsor. That sponsor will have to prove where they were on any given day, and that they've kept in a verbal and a physical contact with them. So we escaped that because 26 years ago when we went, there were none of those major rules. They just had to sponsor us in to say, I say they're of good character and that they're not going to do anything bad. But then they didn't have to be responsible for us.
So your grandfather did.
So, because it was 26 years ago, the first 5 years you're there that's your visa period. So you have to have a sponsor, someone who will say that you're of upstanding character. And then they'll keep that on writing for 5 years. But then once that 5 years is over, you qualify under your own 5-year status to where you can be considered residents, permanent residents. So we are permanent residents. We've been in the UK in June, it will be 27 years. So we're one step shy of being British citizens. So next, when I get home, and into the beginning of next year, we'll be starting our citizenship papers. At the moment, our 3 children are already citizens. The boys automatically gain theirs because they were born after our first 5 years. But our daughter had to apply for hers because she was born before we got that residency paperwork. So with everything going on with the government, we just feel that it might be best if we go ahead and make ourselves citizens so that it won't be easy for them to turf us out.
Will you have dual citizenship?
Yes, we'll be able to keep our American citizenship and also have the British citizenship as well, so that will be good. Really, the only 2 things that benefit us with that is the ability to vote on politics, which we've never had the ability to vote there. And then the other thing would be, it would be a lot harder for them to kick us out. So with things going the way they are, a lot of the American missionaries will be looking to gain their UK citizenship so that they'll be pretty much guaranteed the ability to stay as long as God keeps them in the country. So just 1 foot away from the government's reach, as it were. Let's see, on my husband's health grounds, at the minute, he has stage 3 kidney disease. He was only born with one kidney, and it's starting to wear out. So we would ask as a family that not only would you remember us in prayer for the sponsorship, but also for his health. That at the minute, he's doing pretty good. It's stayed pretty even recently. It's not declined anymore. So they're hoping that they've kind of staved off any further decline because they said he could live the rest of his life on what he has. But then if he were to catch something serious, it could knock that down. So, the possibility is in the future that he will need dialysis and a transplant. But we live in a place where it's not as devastating there as it would be here. So as I said, I'm here to look after my mom. My dad is in Chile at the minute, so we're having lots of time to spend together. I don't know how many of you have been here. How long? Who's the longest standing person here? Would anybody have been here from 26 years ago?
No, not to them.
Okay, I'll tell you a story about this church and how it has a large part to play with where we are and who I am today. So when I was a child, my parents were going to go to Chile as missionaries. So they started off deputation. I was young. Mom got sick and I got sick, so they had to pull out of it for a little while. So just about the time I was getting ready to finish high school, they went back on deputation to go to Chile again. So one of our meetings was here. And it was here that my husband also came as a single missionary, the same mission meeting. So did the meeting, and we were all going out the door. And my dad had gone out, and he'd gone down to the car. And it was just myself and my now husband, who was not at the time, walking down the steps out front. And we get to the car, or I get to the car, and my dad is rolling in fits of laughter. And I'm like, what's the matter? What's the matter? What are you laughing at? And he's just dying laughing. And he finally catches his breath. And I said, well, what is it you're laughing about? And he goes, I know why God made you so short. And that was the start of my dad, who then passed it on to my pastor at the time, and who never let it go. And that's how we're married today. It started on the steps of this church. And my dad, it just struck him funny because my husband is not much taller than I am. Our children, on the other hand, are not. They're very tall. We're the short ones. But this is where it all started. So tomorrow is our 27th wedding anniversary. So, yeah, well, we didn't meet here. We actually met, but we had met in quite a few occasions on different conferences and places, but it didn't strike him until that time, walking down the steps of this church, and he just absolutely rolling. And, that's why this place is special to us. It's one of the places that had a big part in starting us in the same sort of direction. And I often say it's my dad and my pastor's fault. Because they gang up on me after that and say, what about Ronnie? What about Ronnie? So that's why this place is special to us. So that's why we try to come whenever we're in. My husband would have come this time with me had he not been in the middle of all of this legal stuff with the government. He's like, I wish I could go. So tomorrow he's going to stay home and sulk for our anniversary. with a steak dinner. He'll be fine. We'll video chat. I think I've spoken more to him on this trip than I normally get to at home because, he's video chatting me and he goes, where? Oh, forget it. You're in a store. I'm like, that's what grandmas are for. Take me around all the stores when I come home. So I can't say thank you enough on both myself and my husband's behalf for your many years of support. And all the countless letters and cards and, Laffy Taffy and all of those things, because my kids remember you. And when you go around to churches all the time, it kind of all blurs into one. And some of them are hard, you just can't remember special things about places because there's so many churches. But this is where they remember. This is one of the ones they remember. And every time we get a manila envelope in the post, they know where it came from. So you have made an impact on the lives of our children. And for that, we are grateful for. So thank you. Anybody else have any questions that I haven't answered? I'll say the gas prices here are amazing. You might not think so, but I just about jumped the first day I filled up Dad's car, and it was only $36 because it cost me the equivalent of $100 every time I fill up my car, and I have a small car. In Wales, we're in the UK. So about 75% of the price that we pay at the pump goes to the government. It's taxes. Yeah. It's ridiculous. So I was very excited. I'm sure that a few people have thought I was a bit crazy by being so happy to go to the station and pay that little for my gas. So, but other things here have gone up a whole lot, and I've noticed that. I'm like, since when do Frosties cost $2.59 or $3.10?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
How much does it cost to mail a letter?
Milk.
Mail a letter?
Oh, mail a letter. Oh, well, that's gone up. I don't know what it is from here.
No, well,
But if we were to mail a simple little card, not a big card, because if it doesn't fit in their slot, it's considered a large letter, and they get to charge you a large fee. So I think at the minute, if we were to send a letter here, it cost us, by the time you did the ink, the paper, the envelope, and the postage, you're looking at an easy $2. So, and it might be a little bit more than that because we've stopped doing it recently. We used to send our prayer letters from the UK, but when they started getting to cost $2, we were, it was a huge chunk of, money. So we now Macedonia in Georgia does our prayer letters for us. So we can send them for a fraction of the cost, which I think it works out with the way they do the mailing at 65 cents. So instead of paying over $2 for a letter, it's only 65 cents. So
How many supporting churches?
I think we've got about 50.
Pretty low average.
Yeah, that's an average number. I mean, it is for the time that now it takes more because the boards require more from you, require that you have more support. Like we're on the levels from 2000, but the ones now, they have to raise over 2,000 extra a month more than what we have.
What's required for y'all?
Well, when we started, we only had what would equate to $3,000 a month. Now they require that each new missionary has 7,000, and I know why that is because I know how much it costs to do visas now, and the taxes. The tax situation is just crazy. So you have to raise more, and we have made up. We're not still on 3,000, but that's how much we had to have 27 years ago. So we're not up to the 7,000, but we're also not down to 3,000. But now we have one child out of the house and 2 with jobs, so they're going to start paying rent. So, it balances out to where we would like to have a furlough, and that will possibly happen once we get the sponsorship stuff done and our daughter married in June. We'll be looking to plan a proper furlough because we haven't actually been on one in 15 years. We've done summer visits because that's all that we would have the time to carve out. But that's very expensive in itself because it's summer and that's high season for flying. And when you have a family of 5, that's high times 5. Yeah. Anything else? Yes, ma'am?
What is the situation in Wales
Um,
They have many, many, many mosques, so
yeah.
what's their activity?
Wales is a lot more rural. So we may have a few Muslims in town, but we would not have the quantity that would require or that would be able to have a mosque. We're very rural country, kind of like this bit here. So you wouldn't see it as much. But if you go down to Cardiff, which is in the south of Wales, which is the capital city, they will have mosques, and they will have much more Muslim activity than we see in our very rural part of Wales. They are there. London, I would say, that would be a big epicenter for them. And then places, any of the big cities, you'd see a large group of them. But since we're so rural, we might only have a couple that come in for a certain job. Did I see a hand beside of you before that as well?
How much is for food over there?
How much is it for food? Well, I'd have to say that I've been surprised that stuff is as high as it is here. Some of the things that I've looked at in the store, I've gone, that's cheaper over there. But then some of the stuff, I'm like, that's way cheaper than we get it over there. So it kind of evens out a bit. They don't do gallons. They do pints. They do pints and liters. So I would say a liter of milk before I came over here, I'd say it's probably £1.25, so that'd probably make it just over $1.50 for a pint.
For what?
A pint? I'm not a pint, a liter, sorry. A liter. Mm-hmm.
So that would make it
One, yeah,
less
yeah. So some things are like, I find the meat here is crazy expensive.
Yes.
Compared to the UK. Mom's like, that's on sale, and I'm like, that is not a sale price. So I would find that would be a bit of reverse culture shock for me, is looking at some of the prices here. And I'm like, is that how much a candy bar costs now?
Yeah.
What's that? I will be by the time I get home if everybody keeps taking me out for lunch.
So how's the chapel doing?
So we took a large hit during COVID, like a lot of places did. We lost some to death during COVID, but not COVID related. A lot of people, the UK government was extremely strict during COVID. So we were locked down to where you were only allowed out of your house for what they classified as essential. So you could go to the grocery store one time a week. And that was your time. That was it. If you had a doctor's appointment, if it wasn't canceled due to COVID, you could go to that. You could not take a walk down to the park. You could stay in your own back garden, backyard, whatever you call it here. And that was your only bit of exercise. So we were pretty much locked down for a full year. We got out of lockdown for a few weeks, and then they're like, oh, Christmas is coming, lockdown again. So we couldn't, lots of families were physically separated for a full solid year. So when you have elderly people who sit at home on their own, their families are not allowed to visit, we saw a huge decline in mental health and physical health because people were not able to get out and keep themselves active. So we lost people due to just sheer loneliness and boredom. They just went downhill. Their mental health and a lot of things like dementia and Alzheimer's just went wild during lockdown. If you think about a full year not being able to hug the people you love or see your grandchildren grow up, it had a huge detrimental effect. So If we didn't lose them due to already pre-existing ill health, a lot of them went downhill during COVID. We lost a few, and then some of them just got used to sitting at home. So when we did open up, there were some of those that are like, I'm still afraid to come out. So we did lose a lot. So we're basically having to start from scratch again. And maybe this is, maybe we don't understand God's timing in this, but obviously he has a plan, and we'll just have to trust that he can see the picture that we can't always see. So we're dealing with the government now, and then as soon as that's finished, we have huge plans for next year. Ministry opportunities that have been requested and opened up. We just got to get through this sponsorship stuff. So, oh yes, it was mandatory, except if you had something like COPD, or if you had a diagnosed anxiety-related condition, they would give you a special lanyard that you'd wear around your neck, and it had, what was it? I can't remember if it was butterflies or something. But if you went into the store, if you had that on, they would not require you to put on a mask. But if you did not, it was mandatory. Wales was crazy strict. England fared a bit better. They let them out sooner, but our government was really tight, so it was a very difficult time. Everybody had different opinions of whether you should wear a wet mask, not wear a mask, visit your family, not visit your family, sing songs in church, not sing songs in church, shake hands, not shake hands, use a hymn book, not use a hymn book. It's just like, it was a political nightmare.
So the Sankey singing,
Yes.
still a big thing?
It's starting to come back. It took a little bit after COVID. The first couple after COVID, people were like, "Oh, is it safe yet?" So we had a lot less. But every year it's starting to where more churches are bringing them back, and more people are coming to them.
In the pews, your hymn books in the pews, do they have the music, or they're just the words?
Just the words, which is frustrating for those of us who haven't lived our whole life in Wales and know how to sing 1,200 songs. So,
Sending the Sankey hymn book to us.
you're welcome. Sir, you were going to ask a question? Yeah?
Oh, it's about math. That's all.
Oh, just the map. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I didn't know if we'd gotten there. So yeah, it was difficult, but we're starting to see some new, fresh fruit. So we've got the Bible study is back up and running, and Wales is a difficult place. Sometimes you have to spend years building trust and relationships with people. First off, they've seen Americans come and go. They don't think we're going to be there. They think we're going to fly off as soon as the flight takes our fancy, kind of thing. But it takes sometimes years to build relationships. So we're seeing fruit from people that we spoke to 10 years ago. Yeah. We've got 2 gentlemen coming to our Bible studies that I met one when I looked after his mother in the last few months of her life. One of the ministries that I took on it's called befriending. So the local group gives you someone who needs company. And they gave me his mother. She was in the end stage of cancer. And she was with it. She knew exactly what was going on. But all she had was him at home, and he wanted his mother to have a woman to talk to. So he went and he asked, and they gave me his mom. So I went and sat with her and talked with her and sang to her and held her hand and held her hair up while she was being sick. And, we talked to him plenty of times back then, but he was never open. But recently, he showed up completely out of the blue, and he started coming to Bible study every Wednesday night. and he's growing and learning, and sometimes it makes you sad that it takes 10 years, but it makes you glad that you didn't give up. And then the other gentleman, he had a office space in the same space that my husband had an office space. We didn't have enough room in the house, so we rented this little room in the community center, and the other guy had the room next to him, and, they talked, and he was never open. He had a church background, but he just wasn't interested at that time, and he recently showed up. So it just goes to show you that sometimes you have to be willing to do the hard work and stick at it. And, we see people now who would have never given us the time of day 10 years ago. So it is worth sticking at it as long as it takes, and just being faithful and praying for people and realizing that even the contacts that you think have made no good at all, good can come from it. All you have to do is be willing to talk to people and plant the seed and let God do the rest.
It's like the hymn we sang today. It's amazing how God can work in someone's life and free them from sin and, over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So persistence and patience and stick-to-itiveness and all those words they use, just be faithful. Yes, ma'am.
Can you go into schools to give out literature or pamphlets?
When our children were in what we call primary school, which would be your elementary school, we were allowed in the school, and my husband could do what they call religious assembly. So we could go in and do whatever biblical religious education, and that was allowed. The headmistress got cancer, so they switched to someone else, and then that person took over the responsibility of booking whoever was going to come in and take that class. Well, they decided that they were just going to let the teachers do it. They'd take turns. They'd give the job to the teachers. So that stopped being an option. But we've recently been approached with the possibility of going back into the schools and back into the nursing homes, because we were locked out of that for, the whole of COVID, and for a couple of years after, they didn't allow anyone who wasn't immediate family in. So that's now come back open. So after the new year, we're looking at going back into the schools, back into the nursing homes, doing a mums and toddlers, which I don't know if you guys have an equivalent to that here. It's like a group where mums can bring their babies, and you set it up in the church, and you have the chance to meet young mums with their babies and develop friendships and develop relationships whereby you can then explain to them what the church is there for. It's not just there to look pretty on the side of the road. It should have a purpose, and it should have life, and that is part of that life is to make more life. So that's another plan, and then also do a coffee morning. They really like their coffee mornings there. So if you've got tea and cake, people will come in and talk to you, and it gives you another chance to meet. I mean, the church that our house is connected to now has not had a pastor in 30 years. And before we took the chapel that we have now, they had been without a pastor for 30 years. So people passed them, but they never knew they were open. They never knew that there was anything. So the church has been so silent for so long that no one knows it's there. And our plan is to get it back to where people see that there is a church there, and it is alive. It's not just a Sunday morning thing. It should be, there should be other jobs, other chances to worship, and other chances to, share the gospel than just that Sunday morning service. So the plan is to bring the community. I mean, there was not even a sign out front that told people when the services were or where it was, because some Sundays it's at one place and some Sundays it's at another. So the plan is to make sure that people know that there's a church there that cares about them, because it's obviously been missing for a long time, and it's going to take some time to build that back up.
Do they remember the Welsh revival?
There wouldn't be very many people at all left. Especially, well, I mean, definitely for the 1904 revival, because that's over 115 years ago. But they know about it.
That's what I'm saying.
The older generation would remember that their parents and their grandparents talked about it. But the current generation, they don't know. There's, the church attendance is so low. They're so consumed by other things that the church is dying, and in some cases dead. So it's just a case of whether new life can be brought from somewhere that was previously dead. And that's the goal, is to bring back churches and to bring people back to God. And to see that, not every Christian that they've ever known in their whole life is bad. Because some of them have come across some pretty bad ones. And that's why they don't want to have anything to do with it. So, okay. Anything else?
Well, I'm out for right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me come and see you all.
Yes. There you go. All right, very quickly, I won't go very long tonight. It's almost 8 o'clock. Turn to Romans chapter 1, verse 20. Romans 1, verse 20. What is this? Brother Leff raised a question about a particular text, and I was reading in Luke, and Romans 1:20 came to mind. And somebody has that verse. Read Romans 1:20. Can you for me?
For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse.
Without excuse. That's an important thing there. Let me see if I can find what I'm looking for here. There were a couple things. In Luke, it's interesting. In chapter 6 or 7, he was talking about, in particular, the idea of the new wine and old skins. And that you can't do that because, of course, it'll break the skins, and not only will the skins be ruined, but the wine will be lost. And, of course, he's not talking about wine. That was just an object lesson. So what was he talking about there? He's talking about doctrine or teaching. And so what he's dealing with was the Pharisees. The Pharisees, they don't like what Jesus is doing, and in particular in relation to the Sabbath. Jesus was pushing the Sabbath. And so they didn't like that. And he's saying, we get comfortable. Do you know we have traditions? As independent Baptists, we have traditions. And we're comfortable with them. And we don't like changing them. So one of the things that's been happening, like with prayer, the idea of challenging how you pray, we get into habits. We get into habits on all kinds of things, Bible reading and whatnot. And so we kind of fall into these traditions, and we've always done it this way. Jesus faced the same thing. That's what everybody's saying. We've always done it this way. What are you talking about? Changing these things. I meant to bring an object lesson, but it's not here. Anybody know what a smart stick is? What's a smart stick?
A smart stick, you can stick it into your computer
Oh, that's not a smart stick.
and beat somebody with it.
No, make them smart. Yeah. Well, it's actually a level, a 4-foot level. Building the house, I use that level pretty well constantly. And so, I use it all the way up the basement walls. But then when you lift up the walls, you want a level on them. And when you put those end trusses up, you want a level on them. So you use the level all the way. And so it's easy to get caught in tradition, but we can miss a lot. We kind of stop growing. Christianity doesn't become fresh to us. It becomes old and stale. So the idea is that we are open to the teaching of the Word, but we're always comparing it with the Word. That's our level. And so we don't want anything to contradict the Word, but we want to beware just settling in. It's interesting. New wine in the Bible is a symbol of joy. And it says, if you as a Christian have lost your joy, you've got a problem. And Jesus was bringing joy back to a system that had become very legalistic, very judgmental. And he brought back life and joy. And that's something we have to be aware of. Suddenly I'm being challenged. This is my preaching Bible, and I was actually looking this up in another Bible, and I'm lost on the page. You get caught on that, reading on the computer? Well, I've gotten lost on the page, so give me a second, and I'll see if I can find it as soon as I come up with a key word. Well, that didn't help me. I'll just tell you. So Jesus is talking about, he's giving the parables. And the question was, why do you speak to them in parables? And he says that hearing they might hear and not understand. Seeing that they might see and not believe. But it's interesting, that conclusion follows the parable of the sower, which was very interesting to me, because once again, the soil. What? He's not really talking about soil. What's he talking about? Hearts. He's talking about hearts. And so he comes down and he says, I speak to them in parables, that seeing they might see, hearing they might hear, but not understand. So Romans 1:20 says, they're without excuse. The issue is their hearts. If their hearts were open to receive it, then they would. But they're hearing and seeing things, and they're turning away from it. They're not pursuing it. And in the end, they will be without excuse because it was there if they would pursue it. So in a sense, he was speaking in pictures, but there were those that wanted to understand the pictures. The disciples, what does this mean? And so those that whose hearts were good, and when you stop and you think about it, the three first types of soil, the pathway, the stony, the shallow soil, and the thorn-choked, what did they represent? Well, the soil represented the heart, but on the pathway, the devil came and took away the word. On the shallow soil, it said they had no depth in themselves. And the third one was the world. So there you have the devil, our flesh, and the world. Our three enemies are right there in that parable. But anyway, some thoughts there from Luke. Next time I'll mark them in that book. But all right, let's see. Brother Leff, when do you take off? 11:11 tomorrow. Okay, and you're leaving from GSP. All right. Francis, where are you landing meanwhile? Here for a while. The children's home keeping you busy? Very much? Okay, good. All right, and so you'll be gone 2 months left. Is that pretty definite? Okay, so we'll miss him in that area. I had a message from Brother Nathan Ring there in Brazil, and the mechanic shop Bible study is just going great guns. So the owner of the shop and his wife were driving, and here's a lady walking down the road. She's from the Amazon basin, 2,800 miles away, and things are not good. They pick her up, and he finds a place for her to rent, gives her a job at the mechanic shop, and I think she's received Christ as her Savior. And so things are happening at the mechanic shop. So we need to continue to pray that the Lord will work there. He's hoping that that'll be the start of a new church on that side of town. So we need to hold them up in prayer. All right, we're a little late tonight.
Did you want Daniela to give you an update on the stuff from Get For Her?
We already did that. We're talking about bringing stuff. Yeah, that's fine. All right. Well, y'all want to spend a little time in prayer? A little bit? Yeah, okay. Well, let's break up, fellas, this way, ladies, this way. Remember to pray for Ronald with his kidney situation, and for the name of the couple again. Rangiois.
Jason and Dana.
Jason and Dana, as they try to get their sponsorship.